Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer, and I am Skeindeer Knits as a designer on Ravelry. And Skeindeer Knits is also the name of my Ravelry group, which is the best place to take part in knit-alongs, potential giveaways and getting pattern support, getting in touch, getting help, etc. and just taking part in the Skeindeer Knits community. So welcome to my knitting podcast. If you're a new viewer, this is just where I sit and chat about knitting for about an hour once a week or so. And yeah, to regular viewers, welcome back. So welcome to everyone. And yeah, I'm just gonna quickly cover the knit-along stem running before I jump straight into what I have been knitting since the last time we saw each other. So anyway, I am running the year-long knit-along of 2019, which is where we aim to make 6 pairs of colorwork mittens for the duration of 2019. Whew. So they have to be started and finished during the year, and preferably having a collection photo, you know, at the end when I open the submission thread in, I think, December. Yeah, I look forward to see that. I have now started knitting some secret mittens, so I am taking part myself. Kind of. I mean, I'm not in any sort of price draw, so I don't really get to enter, but that's just the struggles of being the knit-along host. So that's one knit-along that you can join in anytime you want this year. Same goes for the other knit-along, kosekofte knit-along, which is where we basically are gonna make my kosekofte pattern. I have already made mine, obviously. I made the pattern, and yeah, you can start whenever you want, really. I haven't put a finishing deadline on yet. I'd like to see how people get on with it first. Maybe we'll be at the end of the summer, maybe later, who knows. But yeah, you can jump on that if you want to. It's just, yeah, making that one pattern so that you will have this amazing massive coat-like colorwork cardigan, very sort of Norwegian style with all the lice patterns and everything. Yeah, so basically that's all the admin that I have to cover this week. And yeah, I have been knitting. I was actually almost this sure that I was going to skip this week's podcast episode, but because I thought I just didn't have much to talk about, and God knows I have a lot of other things to do. But I thought, you know what, we're gonna do it. I have things to talk about because whilst I haven't made the most progress on most things that I've been knitting, I have knitted a lot on a lot of different projects, so you know, there's always something to talk about and hopefully, I don't know, inspire you or what have you. Now, before we get into the knitting, I just remembered I actually have 2 new pattern releases. Well, they're technically 2 independent pattern releases, and I'm going to talk about them in order. So there will be patterns you have seen before, but they can now be purchased individually on Ravelry. So I'm just going to scoot aside so we have some room for pictures of said pattern. Actually, I'm going to scoot to the other side. That looks better. Put them here. The first pattern is the Isbre sweater. It was part of Brother Garn. Their kind of wintry colorwork issue was in the autumn to winter of 2018, and it is now readily available on Ravelry. I am going to put a discount code down here below that will be useful for only a very limited amount of time. I tend to include these codes just to kind of as a way of giving thanks to the people who support a pattern once it gets launched on Ravelry, because it's often the first couple of days that matters the most in terms of how many people see them. And for the people who buy the patterns or add it to their favorites or what have you are the people who contribute to more people finding my patterns. So that's kind of my way of giving back there. So yeah, thank you for supporting me as ever. And yeah, Isbre was so much fun to design. I mean, it was a challenge, and I think I became so much of a better designer for it. I'm not even going to tell you the details, but rest assured that, oh yeah, I knitted the yoke twice. The first yoke was huge, and then I knitted the body and I realized it's too big, and then I had to redo the yoke and I grafted it back onto the body. And yeah, the things you didn't need to know, but it was the thing that I did. And yeah, in general, it's just a big, cozy, baggy sweater in fionn, and undyed grey fionn is so soft. It does also have some fun techniques of how to avoid long floats, because as you can see in the kind of chart repeat, there is potential for long floats. Obviously, if you don't mind long floats, then you won't need that technique, but I thought it was a bit of fun to put in a bit of double knitting in there as well. But having said that though, as much as I am partial to people getting my pattern on Ravelry, the issue that it came with in Brother Garn is amazing. I can highly recommend it, not just because I am in it both as someone who got interviewed and a designer there, but it's a really good issue. It's probably my favourite Brother Garn issue. It's it's a good one. So anyway, moving on to the other pattern release that I have, which is Underground. The mittens that I released alongside Helen Stewart for Yarn in the City, their little London yarn guide. So this is the yarn guide here. It's got Millie from the Yarn Shop Tribe in London on the front cover, and yeah, there she is again with the mittens. So yes, they are now available for purchase on Ravelry, so you can get them there. And again, there will be a code here. It is only valid for a very limited amount of time, like I said, so if you find this video in the future, it will probably not be valid anymore. I can't have them valid forever. Obviously, I do wish to sell my patterns for full price for the long term, because you know, paying the bills and all that stuff. But for a limited time, yeah, like I said, I like to give back to the people who support initial pattern releases on Ravelry, because it helps me. Wow, just repeating myself now. I can tell it's been a while since I launched a pattern. It's like it's completely unfamiliar to me. Weird, but yeah, Underground was essentially inspired by the whole topic of this little booklet is yarn shops in London. So more broadly, London. So we were just asked to make something inspired by London, and I thought, well, there's the public transport system, and that's why they're called Underground. They came up with that name because I couldn't come up with names, even though that name is super obvious actually. And I keep calling it the Underworld mittens. I don't know why I keep doing that. Maybe that says something about how I feel about the Northern Line and the Central Line. Yeah, but yeah, Underground mittens, inspired by London, where we live. We're all expats in London, all of us who took part. I don't know if Millie's next, she might be the only knit. I don't know. So I can highly recommend this issue, even if you get the pattern from Ravelry or not. It's a really good little booklet. If you're ever going to go yarn shopping in London, you need this, basically. It's great. So yeah. Those are my two new pattern releases of the week. It's been a long time since I launched a pattern. It's something that's probably going to happen a lot less until the summer's over, at least, just because PhD life. Enough about that, but I thought you might want to know that just in case. I don't know. One project that I'm sure you are a little bit fed up with seeing is this Mockit shawl, because I am knitting on it continuously and just not making that much progress every week, although I feel like I do. It's a big shawl, it's a lot of purling. Yeah, so anyway, Mockit by Stephen West. It's this kind of weird bunched up thing. Hang on. So I think it's considerable progress. I mean, you know, I was at this like little tail for a long time, right? Remember this? And then I just powered through till I got to stripe in the second color, and now I just worked a lot of the second color. I'm supposed to have like 20 garter ridges of that color now, and I'm at 16, I think. So that's not too shabby, I don't think. What is this needle doing? Am I mid-row? Have I just put this project down mid-row? Why do I do this? It's not even... I only just started that, but that's just professionalism here. That's why you come here, right? So, yeah. Mockit by Stephen West, knitted in Tweedy Todd's Silk Merino Yak blend, which is a single ply yarn. It has a bit of fuzz to it, thanks to both being single ply and to, well, having yak in it. So yeah, I just love this. The colours here are just... yes. So the way I figure this is going to work out is that when this is blocked, all this garter stuff, this little double garter ridges, it's going to be stretched out and stay that way. I don't usually believe in that for shawls. Like, I think if you block and stretch that garter wants to bounce back together again. But one, this is single ply. Single ply doesn't bounce. Once it's stretched, it's stretched. But the other thing is, there is to be a knitted on border, and I think if the knitted on border adds a stretch and this adds a stretch, it's likely to stay that way. And from the other Mockit shawls I've seen out in the wild, I think it might just. So, woo. So I'm more than halfway through the actual this bit of the shawl. That's basically the shawl excluding the knitted on border. So that's not too shabby, is it? I feel like it looks a bit small. I've seen so many other of these shawls and they look quite big, and I'm fairly confident I'm knitting to gauge. I don't know why I feel like it's small. Maybe I'll feel differently once it's been blocked, because superwash grows so much, and I always underestimate just how much it grows every time. So, you know, me, it's probably gonna be fine. Thought you might want to see a close-up of the colours I'm knitting with. So these are the colours that I have worked in. This is been put aside, and I'll need to bring this around because I'm not going to use it until I knit it on border. And this is the next colour that I hope to bring in very soon. So it's already taken residence in my knitting bag, because I think it's gonna happen, you know, in just a couple of Garter Ridge repeats now. So that's exciting. But yeah, there's not really much else to say about this. It's the same thing every week. It's just a really great social knit. It's just something I can bring around every time I hang out with people and knit, and I can still talk, you know, and don't have to think much about the project as I'm knitting on it. It's pretty good for that. And I think it's a little bit too boring to knit at home on my own, because it's just the same from corner to corner pretty much. Lots of people are really into that. They get into a big sort of rhythm. I like the complicated things when I'm at home, and I like to have the simple things when I'm out with people. Now for my second work in progress for this week. I have not worked on it a whole lot since last week. I just realized yesterday actually that if I'm gonna have this finished for wool in, it needs to be started, knitted. I need to start it basically. I mean, I have started it, but I need to start the sleeves. And that is of course Tenya that I machine knitted from the armhole and up, so that I didn't have to work the stockinette flat. The rest of it I have done by hand. I discussed this at length in the last episode, the last week's episode, if you want to see that. So we got the lace happening. I did all this by hand, which isn't something to boast about or anything, because everyone does that around here, but I did the rest on the machine before I did the neckline, obviously by hand, because that would be quite complicated on the machine, I think. Who knows? But I have now picked up for the first sleeve. I do think that whilst my row gauge that I estimated for the machine was pretty much accurate, I have found that my armhole was a little bit longer than called for, so I ended up picking up the stitch count for the next size up. I think I'm knitting the XL, but I'm knitting at the tighter gauge. It's probably more like the M, maybe L. But I picked up the stitch count for the next size up, so the sleeve fits really well right now. I'm supposed to knit to, I think, about 2 inches before I start decreasing, but I decided let's do 4 inches. That seemed to make more sense. I was just trying this on as I went because I can do that. The garment is pretty much done. It's just the sleeves, and this does fit over my upper arms just about. So I could try it on and see how it went, and I found that, yeah, starting to decrease this about here rather than further up, it made more sense for me. And now I am decreasing at about every 9th row. Just that seemed to work out. So no, every 10th row round. Yeah, so I'm just doing that. And you know what, now that I worked this far of the sleeves, I'm kind of down at the elbow right now because this is the drop shoulder. This doesn't look any smaller, so I think I can knit comfortably right down to the wrist for both sleeves. Now I have weighted this before I started the first sleeve, so that I know how much I should have left before I start the second sleeve, which is half of this cake's original weight. Then I should have enough to make 2 pretty much identical sleeves, which is kind of something I like. Yeah, I don't want one sleeve shorter than the other, obviously. So I think that will work out really well. I don't know how to finish off the cuff. I was thinking rib, but I think it might clash a bit with, well, the rest of this thing that doesn't have any rib to it. So I'm thinking maybe moss stitch, just like a short moss stitch cuff. It's not too much moss stitch, it's not going to drive me mad. It's just a thought. Anyway, I really like this. This is designed by Caitlin Hunter, also known as Boylan Knitworks, and it's just really nice. I am using Woolmeister lace, which is, I would argue, a light fingering weight yarn, which is why I'm knitting this at a tighter gauge, because I don't think it will work out well at the recommended gauge in the pattern, which is recommending a kind of fuzzy fingering weight yarn, and this is anything but. This is not fuzzy at all. Woolmeister is known for very tight plies. The yarn is not fuzzy. It tends to not pill as much as other merino yarns, superwash yarns in particular. So that's pretty pretty pleased with that so far. I've only knitted with Woolmizer lace once before, when I was knitting the Nuvem shawl by Martina Bem. So this is a nice kind of, yeah, re-encounter with Woolmizer lace. Yeah. So there we have it. I do love this colour. It's blowing out a little bit on camera, but the poison colour, I think it's poison number 5 if memory serves right. Oh, it's so nice. It's just really dark plum colour. As for the length, now that I've tried this on a bit more, it is a length that looks a lot nicer with leggings or, you know, tight fitted jeans and stuff like that. I do wear leggings a lot, but I tend to have skirts outside because on top of them, I can't speak today. I feel a bit bare wearing only leggings, and I never ever wear trousers. So it's a little bit unfortunate that I have made a top that really does work well with a style that isn't really mine. It's really flattering when I have it on top of my leggings. I just feel like my bum is a bit naked in leggings. There's no oomph to that. It's just very comfortable. I just feel like I haven't dressed up properly. I don't know, it's just me. I'm like, I think I'm being a bit overthinking-y about this, which wouldn't be new for me. I think it's probably fine to walk out in public with leggings. I wouldn't think twice if anyone else did it. It's just one of those hang-ups, because I'm so used to always popping a skirt on top of it, and it's just, yeah. But I'm gonna consider styling it with maybe like a mini skirt or something and see how that works, because then it's just kind of two sort of layers of kind of ruffles, frills, something. We'll see. But I do think it's going to be quite nice to wear it woolen, because it's obviously not the hottest kind of knitwear. It's really kind of ironic that I'm sort of profiling myself as the woolly wool knitter, and I really do love woolly wools. It's just that. These light superwash yarns, they sure are a lot less hot. And I am someone who runs hot a lot. So I really actually need more of this stuff in my wardrobe in order to wear more knitwear. It's a bit ironic, but yeah. But I think once I'm more comfortable with my knitting machine, I'm probably going to see if I can work out more superwash garments on that, because I can work with lighter weight yarns and not spend forever on them and still focus on my designs when I do hand knitting. I think that's maybe a plan. I don't know, I'm just really enjoying exploring the knitting machine, and I'm really glad that so many of you are enjoying hearing about it as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of this episode, because there are some news about that. But yeah, I haven't really worked on the machine since last time, so yeah. I'm now gonna move swiftly on to further works in progress. So yeah, that was Tenya by Caitlin Hunter, also known as Boiler Knitworks, in Woolmizer lace, with just a ton of modifications and workarounds and what have you. There is another project that has actually kind of come to surface again, and that's my sock project. I tend to just have one vanilla sock project going sometimes, and this one seems to be coming back. So you will remember that I finished this Regia sock in an Anna and Carlos colorway rather quickly. This is just one of the usual kind of Regia 4-ply, but yeah, it's a colorway developed by Anna and Carlos. And sock number 2 always takes a bit longer. I usually tend to need a bit of a gap between making the first and the second, but what do you know, I have worked a second down to the heel flap. And then I put it away because I didn't want to do the heel flap. I tend to get really annoyed with it. It's just a bit too long, and knitting flat and turning so many times. And yeah. But I will do it. It will happen. But hey, look at that progress. It is a really quick one, and it's really rewarding to see the pattern grow so much. And it's actually not such a long section from here to here before you get to the green section. The green section starts way before you decrease for the toe, so that it fits multiple sizes. I talked a lot about this earlier. But it does mean that there's always something new happening, and that's nice. In terms of pattern, this is usually my kind of go-to vanilla sock recipe. I did 2x2 rib in this case that I did until I ran out of green. The heel flap is a 1x1, well, it's a slip stitch pattern, slip stitch heel flap. It's a very short heel flap because I tend to then for my heel turn use half a German shorter heel so that there's a lot of room for kind of the roundness of the heel, so that this doesn't go all the way down to the sole of my foot. I quite like that, personal preference. More on that in one of my several of my colorwork patterns, sock patterns. So yeah, the gusset isn't super big either, because most of it is just happening down here in the heel. It's just a really nice compromise heel between the heel flap and the shorter heel. I get questions every so often about like if I can make a pattern just with that heel, and I don't think I am at the place where I need to make a vanilla sock pattern or anything like that. It's not my forte. It's already included in my colorwork sock patterns, and like price would be pretty much the same anyways. You could just get those patterns and you will get that heel. And yeah, obviously different stitch counts for different socks and stuff. I'm just using my usual 64 stitches for my socks. It seems to work out. Yeah, so it's a bit, you know, you kind of need to familiarize yourself with a heel to be able to apply it to different stitch counts and such, but that's kind of how it is. Maybe one day I'll develop it enough to make a pattern, but I don't think it's at that stage right now. So for the time being, it's available in those patterns. I hope you can't hear the sirens outside. It's London. I live very central in London, for anyone who cares to know. I'm really lucky to live in a very sort of quiet pocket in the middle of that, but every so often you hear the city. It's how it is. So it's time to get into the cheeky cast ons, because I seem to cast on something every week. Not that I bind off something every week, so that's not a very good ratio, but I do have 2 new cast ons. One isn't particularly interesting, but I'm going to talk about the interesting one right now. So you may have heard me talk loudly about this on Instagram, which is a new shawl pattern by knitleader, also known as Leaky Fountain on Instagram. And yeah, she has made a new shawl pattern that you can buy on Ravelry. I do believe it's both available in English and Danish. I am knitting the English version, so I can definitely confirm that. But yeah, she's a Danish designer and has made amazing shawl patterns in the past. I just love her patterns. I have one of her books. It's one of my, it is probably the favorite shawl book of mine. Not that I've ever knitted any of the shawls yet, but they're all pretty much in my queue. But now she's made a pattern available on Ravelry. It's a single download because it goes through a fabulous course. It's for the sclerosis something foundation, maybe. Oh, I should have memorized this, but point is 15 kroner, Danish kroner, will go to sclerosis research. So that's amazing. And if you've seen the photos for this pattern, they are amazing, and it's something that I think the disability community deserves. I'm just going to say that. I think you should look it up. It is great. It is just... So, anyway. I'm going to show you what I have made, because I have started this project. First, I'm going to talk about the yarn. The pattern recommends New Zealand lamb's wool by Filcolana. And I think Filcolana is quickly growing up to be one of those good, affordable, commercial yarn brands that I so far have absolutely no issues with. Sometimes, you know, the cheaper companies do something a bit dodgy and I'm like, I can't endorse this anymore, and I really want to have something that is, you know, a commercial yarn that is affordable, that I can actually wholeheartedly recommend. And thus far it looks like Filcolana is just that. I don't know how available their yarn is to everyone. I would suggest looking that up on Ravelry, because if you click their individual yarns, Ravelry gives suggestions for where you can buy them, so you can find out depending on where you live in the world. I really like them, but I don't have their New Zealand lamb's wool. I do have some of their Telia silk mohair, but that's another story. But what I did find is that I have Nøstebarn's 2-ply merino, which looks suspiciously similar to the New Zealand lamb's wool by Filcolana. They both have 600 meters by 100 grams, and usually when you find that some yarns are that similar in specifications, you can pretty much assume that they're made by the same mill and they're just different labels on them depending on who sells them. I don't know this for sure, but this is just my suspicions, so I figured I'm just going to use the yarn I have in stash, and this is why I bought a lot of Nøstebarn yarn. So Nøstebarn is a chain basically of shops in Norway that specializes in knitwear for children, for babies. They make a lot of excellent arguments for why wool is best for babies, non-superwash wool, and they also have a section of yarn if you want to knit yourself instead of buying the ready-made clothes. And I love their yarn. I had dismissed it for a long time because I'm always a bit about those who talk about wools and babies, because often it's things like, oh, babies need soft wool, and I was just kind of prepared for it to be something I don't like, but it turns out to be right up my alley. So this is the yarn I'm using. As you can see, this one has shrunk a lot compared to this because I have actually knitted a lot. But yeah, they both come in 100 grams skeins. Now they are 100 gram cakes because I wound them up, which takes a long time because we've got 600 meters. It takes a lot of winding, so yeah, that's one of the downsides. But in terms of Fioccolano's yarn, they actually do sell them in balls as well, whereas Nästöbarn only sell them in hanks, so you know, there's pros and cons there. Another pro for both companies is that it's incredibly light. I mean, if you got 600 meters per 100 grams, you can be sure it is very light, and this is what I have, and it's so light. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, so can't even fit into the frame. This has grown really fast, given that I cast this on about mid last week or something. It's a grower. I mean, I'm having so much fun with this. Reason being is that it only really takes this much before you get into the garter rhythm of things. You kind of know how it works and how frequently you increase. You can already test every time you work the short rows that you have enough stitches. And once you are up to here, you will get general instructions for how to work rows, or I guess sets of short rows with either full waves, as they're called, or full and half waves, which will happen every other kind of short row section. As you can see here, this is a half one, there's a half one, oops, it's a half one further down. So they alternate, right, with full and halves. And it's really easy to get into that rhythm, honestly. So you just keep going, and right, every time you work one of these, you just want to finish the whole thing in one go, because that's just easier, because it's short row and you have to keep counting when you do short rows, and then you keep working like, what, 11 garters or so. Again, it's really quick to go through. You just want to get to the next, but once you're at the next, you might as well work the short rows. Once you work the short rows, you want to work them all in one go because you're counting, repeat, cycle. So you just never really end up putting this thing down, because there's always something happening and something you think you can do pretty quickly, and before you know it, you have, what have I, 7 waves on the needles now. I think I need to knit up to 8, so what I have left is a 7.5 wave short row set and then a full 8, and then I get to do something different. So I mean, I'm having so much fun with this. It's an excellent shawl, and it is made corner to corner, you know, so kind of comparable to Smocket. It's gonna have kind of a nice rounded shape when you get to the center of the shawl before you basically repeat this again with the opposite colors, but decreasing instead of increasing, so it goes faster and faster. I am all for this. This is so much fun to work on. It's gonna be another shawl. Woo! And the colors are probably no surprise to anyone. I mean, it's what I had in stash, and I tend to buy and put in stash the colors I like. So that all worked out. I can't remember. Did I say that I haven't worked with this yarn? Because that is a lie. I am working this. I have some yellow in this yarn, and that is what I'm knitting with my Fioccolano Tilia. So technically, you could say that it's a full Fioccolano project, even though it's branded as Nästöbarn. And I don't think like it's Fioccolano's original yarn. I don't know. I don't know anything about this stuff. I just love to speculate about yarns being similar and potentially the same. You guys have seen me do this a lot for Holst and JC Rennie, where I think I found that Garnutsalg is the same as JC Rennie, as is, I think, Biches and Bücher, if I'm not entirely mistaken. I think Holst is the same as Knoll yarns or Knoll yarns, depending on pronunciations. And they also have that at Trollen wool. There is a lot of Norwegian and Swedish brands that have that. There is Uppingham Yarns here in the UK where you can get it really affordably under their brand. So you know, you can get it in a lot of places. Different brands but the same yarn, and it's really good to know, because then you know what is compatible. So if you have a bit of Garnutsalg and you have a bit of JC Rennie, you know it goes together. So I think that's great. I love finding out these things. And it's not like it's a very well kept secret. You just compare meters per grams, and if you have the yarn at hand, it's even easier. So I don't know. I mean, you can really tell that the nerd in me just comes out with regards to these kinds of knitting things. It's like, you know, knitting investigations, knitting detective work. So yeah. So here's a third kind of bunch of yarns then that I'm sure is very much compatible. Oh, what happened to the sun? Anyway. So yeah, this is just going to be adding a third category to the holes to the garnet sock thing, which is, I'm pretty sure it's very much compatible that you could use together. It is a lot finer, but we'll be checking the bloom factor once I give this a soak. What is happening with the English here today? I am editing out so much in this episode. Goodness me. And what is going on with the sun? Everything is going on today. Fascinating. And I'm apparently talking really fast. Yeah, okay, there's the sun again. It's cool. Whatever, do what you want. I thought I was going to record today because it was cloudy and I thought I would get stable sunlight or a light. No, that was a lie. Thank you, sun. Anyway, thank you, sun, for, you know, making the plants grow so we can breathe fresh air and stuff. Good job. Anyway, Nedvin shawl by Karin Løged. She is brilliant. I love this. I can wholeheartedly recommend it. The money of a portion of the price of the shawl goes to a fabulous cause. I love the photography of this. I'm just all for it. And there is a knit along going. I don't know the details of that, but if you check out Leaky Fountain's Instagram, then you can find out more. I might take part, you know, if I finish in time. I'm certainly making a lot of progress, so you know, that's not too shabby. I don't know if I have much else to say. Obviously don't want to give away the pattern. All I can tell you is that it's fun. It's really fun. So there is one last work in progress to share. I don't really have all that much to say about it. It's a project that I may or may not have covered here before, but I ended up frogging it. I just worked up the rib and found that it wasn't the right size, because I got more information about the size later. So where do I begin? I've decided that this is going to be the year where I knit jumpers for friends. No pressure, just, you know, it's a thing that I like to do sometimes. It's actually a thing I don't do enough at all. So I'm normally kind of a self-declared selfish knitter. I kind of like to use the word tongue-in-cheek, but obviously you may feel differently, and that is fine. But I do that. I knit for myself, you know, who's going to appreciate it more than me. But this year I have been feeling a lot like knitting jumpers for others. I have already, I think I made 2 jumpers that I've given away. I made one for my friend Christy that kind of gently felt it. She still loved it. I managed to give it to her in time before she moved from London back to Norway. And I made another jumper, the after party sweater from Lane, to a mutual friend of ours who is going to be where she's moving to. So yeah, she just got back to me that she loved the jumper. So that's great. That was just really great to hear. There was like, because it's a bit awkward, you know, giving a jumper to someone you haven't talked to for years. But yeah, she just exploded with joy. So that's all great. And now I want to make another jumper. And me and my friend have been in talks with this for a long time. I asked him, you know, do you want a jumper on this yarn? What do you want? I gave him a couple of choices. And of course he chose the one with the most cables. Oh. And then I put it off. I cast it on and I realized it wasn't actually his size. His size is a lot smaller. So I frogged that and just let it hibernate, even though I knew now what size to do. Yeah, it's just a lot of cables and I think I want to modify it a lot, which I will get back to. But yesterday I got some very sad news. Is that my best friend for 21 years, his grandmother passed away this weekend. And obviously having been friends with him for 21 years, I do know his family sort of, you know, not as well as obviously he does, but I know her name. I've met her. We actually made a really cool documentary film about her and his grandfather, how they had these senior dance groups in their town. It was like a kind of 10-minute short documentary, I think, and I have no idea where it is. So when I go to Norway next, I'm gonna rummage through my mom's storage facility and see if I can find the disc that I put that on, because that was a really, really nice production that we did. And obviously it's really sad that my friend lost his grandmother. She was really lovely, and it would be really good if I could locate that film that we made. But until then, whilst I'm in London, what I want to do for him is to knit that jumper. I haven't told him this, of course, and it's probably not going to be done this year, but you know, I'm doing that. So I've cast on and I'm doing it in the round. It is a Michelle Wong pattern. It's the Oyster sweater for him in brackets. I think she's got a female version as well. I don't know how they're different. But yeah, I did do the initial cast on flat, the one in the wrong size. I just realized that the likelihood of me mattress stitching stuff together is quite low. I still haven't sewn in the sleeves of my apron side, so I'm just gonna save myself the hassle and do it in the round. So I'm doing that. It looks quite small for a guy right now, but it's because it's rib. Trust me, it's gonna be bigger, and I'm gonna go up a whole needle size for, you know, the actual cable bit. When I cast this on, I kind of managed to talk myself into making it with just stockinette in the back and the cables in the front. But I realized as I went that I can't do that because gauge. Right, so this is why I don't tend to design with cables, because cables mess up everything you think you know about gauge. They will just bunch things together and make it very unpredictable, which is why obviously you need to swatch, and once you measure your cable swatch, you know the gauge and how that will change from plain stockinette. Yeah, so what if I take out the cables in the back? What's going to happen then? Well, of course, that's going to be a lot bigger than the front. Yeah, that's not going to work out. I could of course take out stitches from the back and just do fewer stitches, but then how is that going to work out for the raglan in front when I'm doing it in one piece instead of sewing? I am of course just going to have to do those cables front and back. I wish I was like Katie of Inside Number 23, who just like powers through cables the way I do with color work and just gets it done. For me, they're more like hurdles than things I want to get to next. Yeah, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for my friend. He better love this jumper. I feel like it's gonna be his taste. I feel like he has a jumper that isn't too different, so if anything it will be something he wears out in the cabin or something, you know. If it's something he will only wear when nobody sees him, then fine, at least he will be wearing it, but hopefully he will really like it. He'd better like it. He chose the pattern. Yeah, so that is what is going on. It's really nice. I love working with this yarn. This is Lamia Natural Wool, I think it's called, that I got sent for free by Hobby Home Yarns. They just sent me a lot of yarn for me to play around with, and I really like this yarn. It's so nice. It's got a lot of bounce. It's soft, it's non-superwash, it's a very like uncharacteristic yarn. It just doesn't have anything particular to it, which means it's quite versatile. It's quite bouncy, not too much, not at all drapey, woolly but not itchy. I like it. I really like it. I enjoy working with this. I keep thinking I kind of wish this was for me, but me and my friend do have very, very different sizes. I have always been the one who's, you know, considerably shorter than him and a little bit more plump, and he's quite tall and slim. So yeah, there's no way I can make this mine even if I wanted to. What is happening with the light today? I could have just put down the blinds and put on my studio lights, but I just feel they look a bit artificial and effort and stuff. But this is just horrible. But yeah, anyway, I can really recommend this yarn. Actually, let's talk about what I am wearing, because this is loosely related. I'm wearing the Ducut sweater. This is designed by Kate Davis that I knitted in another yarn that I got from Hobby that they gave me. They gave me so many sweater quantities, and yeah, really, really generous. So this is one of those. This is Just Wool by Lamia, and it is just wool, but it's recycled wool, and it's beautiful dark purple. arguably burgundy. It's very dark. You could almost mistake it for black, but it's got this plum tinge to it. I've been saying a lot that I want to fix the neckline because it kind of is a bit funny. I'm kind of getting used to it now. Maybe it's not worth the effort. I don't know. Don't know. So yeah, both of these yarns are incredibly soft. This one tends to be a bit of a magnet for dust and hair, I will say that. I keep like doing this and like, oh, there's so much hair stuck to it. It works really well with this hairstyle because no hair comes off me. I seem to be wearing this a lot lately because my hair has just become really long without me even realizing, and the temperature is heating up in London, so this hair seems to work out pretty well with that temperature. This jumper is probably not going to stay on me for the whole day because it's only morning now and it was a bit chilly, but it's going to warm out, especially if the sun's going to keep doing this. Yeah, so that's my kind of partially, I guess, endorsed yarn recommendation. It's always a bit awkward with these things because if you send things for free, it is technically legally an endorsement. Like, you've been given stuff for free, you might as well be paid for it. It's kind of, the law doesn't really see these things as different. It's certainly not the Norwegian law does that. But nobody gets to tell me what to say about these products, and I will give you my honest opinion, and I quite like these. This one has a lot more bounce to it than this. This was a lot easier to knit with than this. This was quite hard and tedious, but I love the result, and I'm definitely going to knit up the other sweater quantity as well. This is a delight to knit with, and I think it's going to be a delight to wear as well, but they only come in shades of brown, so something to consider, I suppose. They're both kind of DK to worsted. I would argue this is more of a DK. I wouldn't know why I keep doing this, but I feel like it just shows you the yarn better. This is more of a DK. It looks a little bit tweedy, but not quite. This is definitely more of a worsted, so again, I wouldn't say they're interchangeable exactly. Just options. Yeah, so gosh, I think that's all I have to say for works in progress this week. Nothing's been finished. So the last bits I have for you guys this week is my acquisitions. And for acquisitions, I actually thought I wouldn't have anything for you guys this week because I thought, well, yeah, I can't see anything new around me. No new booklets, no new needles, no new yarn, what? And then I realized I had one massive acquisition actually, and it's a new attachment for my knitting machine. Yes, I got a Ribber. In fact, I also got a knitleader. I have still yet to figure out what a knitting or knitleader is for a knitting machine. It just came with the Ribber. Apparently I should feel very fortunate for that because I got a bargain. So in case you don't know, I have recently started to acquire knitting machine parts for my knitting machine, and everything including the machine I always get secondhand from eBay. It's all models from the 80s usually. It's all stuff that people have stopped using, and partially because new machines are expensive, partially because the old machines are pretty much as good, if not better, and we should reuse things because planet. So it's a good thing all around really, and it's often a very good way to approach knitting machinery if you're new to it and you don't want to invest too much, which can mean in a nutshell. So yes, I got a knitting machine, and I am a newbie, a complete and utter newbie, but I'm slowly learning, and it's a steep learning curve. And we talked about this a bit last week, and I kind of covered, you know, common misconceptions that knitting machines are in any way automatic. Like, of course, there are exceptions to the rule here, and lots of people have more modern machines that are, you know, more automatized. Is that a word? Mine is not automatic whatsoever. It doesn't plug into any socket. It's completely, like, what's the opposite of automatic? Analog? Basically, it's mechanic, but I am the one running it. There's nothing automatic about it, sadly. It's just set up so that one hand movement, it's one row, and now with the Ribber it can be one half of a round, because the Ribber actually allows me to knit in the round, which I think is so exciting. It also obviously does rib, thus the name, but it does not do rib and in the round at the same time, sadly. That was a bit of a bummer, but the way it works is essentially that the method by which it knits rib is also the same that it knits in the round, and so therefore it can't do both at the same time. Yeah, bummer, but there are ways to work around this. You can work the rib flat and then kind of jiggle it around a bit so that you can then knit that from the bottom up in the round, or you can do the other. Anyway, details you don't need to know. Although I have gathered that a lot of you are interested in how the machine kind of works, even if you don't work with machines, and I think that's really fun. I might do videos. I've had some people ask me to do that. Obviously they will not be tutorials because I don't do tutorials, and also because I am so new to this. I have absolutely nothing to teach anyone. I am, yeah, still dabbling, but I would be happy to kind of just put on the camera just to give you an idea of how it works once I've gotten more accustomed to the machines. I'm gonna just insert some footage here of my new Ribber attachment, and as you can see that, yes, it's got a lovely shade of nicotine yellow. It did also come with a bit of a funky scent in the beginning, but it's been a bit of a hot week, so I've had the windows open a lot, and I think it's fine. It's just a little bit unsightful with all the yellow, but you know, you gotta make do, and it's second hand. I know there are ways of bleaching the plastic back to its usual kind of cream white. It just means that I have to unscrew all the plastic from the rest of the machine, and I don't really know how to do that and if it's really worth it. And you know what, it's usable, it's completely usable, so yeah, more bits for my machine. I am actually awaiting more bits, that's why I haven't tried the Ribber yet. I would have loved to play around with it and do stuff in the round and rib and what have you. But yeah, I need more tools. There was one important part of the Ribber that was not included. I had already been made aware of this, and that is how I managed to do such a bargain. I think you have to look at most Ribbers for being at least £100 or so. Mine was already listed at 79, but you could add bids. I suggested a lower price, and I said I think there is a part missing, so I'm gonna bid £50. And the seller knew very little about machines, but he could confirm that yes, that part is missing, so he accepted my offer and I got it for £50, which is, bargain is too mild a word. It is a super bargain, especially when you consider that knitting leader or knit leader, whatever you call them, knit leader, the manual on the ground said knit leader, so it's a knit leader, that was included as well, so I think I got a massive bargain from that. So I'm kind of happy that I had to buy the extra parts and the extra cost associated with that, because it's still a bargain, so yay. I did get another part for the machine as well. What is this, you may ask? What kind of weird sort of hole puncher stapler crossover is this? Is it something from Alien? Is it a whale? Is it Moby Dick? I don't know. It's a hole punch, a card punch. What does the box say? Card punch. So this is apart from the knitting machine that punches holes in punch cards. A punch card is essentially a piece of paper that the machine can read to do color work. And my machine, I think, is the first model, if not the second model of the 80s that could do that. So I can do color work on the machine. I did get a lot of pre-made punch cards with the machine, and I have tried it out. And it does this. I say I tried it out, actually a friend of mine did this. I have no idea how she did it. Probably pushing some buttons or what have you. But yeah, it does color work, and with some pretty darn good tension as well. So that's exciting. So my plan, gotta be careful with this, it will unravel. But my plan is to get through a lot of stash. I have a bunch of Prydväv garn by Doma, which is essentially moth-proof, high ply, high twist weaving yarn. And the way I see it is I've cranked that through the machine with the color work reader and doing it in the round. I could make a lot of really awesome cushions for the house. I do already have the Marius cushion here, but honestly, it's looking pretty rough. I know I always managed to kind of puff it up and make it look nice for the podcast. But honestly, I made it in superwash merino, which has grown way bigger than the cushion that it contains. It's not looking too good, so I'd rather make some new and better cushion covers in hardier yarns and maybe denser on the machine. I may use the punch cards that have already been readily made for me and try those out once I've got the ribber going, or I might, yeah, try out something else. So my view with this kind of Moby Dick thing, I think that's what I'm going to call him, Moby Dick, is to essentially try to make my own patterns on the punch card thing. Because the way I see it is, what if I could, say, put the chart from Vinterfjell onto a punch card that my machine can read, and then I can show you guys all the potential color variations you could make with swatches. So I'm just thinking I could mass produce lots of different colored swatches with all my leftover yarns, because the loosest gauge that my machine can knit with is actually the gauge of Vinterfjell and most of my garment patterns, if not all of them at this, I'm not sure. So it should be possible to do this, and yeah, like I said, I could show various color combinations. Now, I don't think I'll be able to do this on demand, so to speak, with people asking me, hey, can you swatch those colors? But I can certainly give a couple of just options when I release a pattern, say. That's a really cool idea that I just thought I could do. So I want to utilize the machine for my designing a little bit, but mostly it's just for fun. Just kind of, yeah, get through stash, learn a new skill, get through a lot of rib, let's be real. So I'm really glad to have the machine or the ribber in particular, to do rib. I have a lot of rib, or I should say a lot of patterns that I want to knit, but the rib is what keeps me off it. I even have 2 skeins dangling from the machine right now that I know is going to become something very, very ribbed. So yeah, so these are my latest acquisitions. I am, like I said, awaiting a couple of more items for the machine, the 2 bits that were missing, so, and also more cards that have not yet been punched that I can punch holes in, and once I have those and I've learned how to use them, I think we're gonna see a lot of fun things. And as it turns out, this is all I have for you this week. I have worked on a lot of different things, but not as much on each of them, so I suppose there wasn't that much to say in the end. Yeah, I hope you guys have had a fabulous week, and I hope that May has treated you well, and I will see you guys next time, maybe even at Woolen in Dublin. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye.